I thought would have been among the easiest. We solved, President Putin mentioned yesterday Armenia, you know, all of the different wars. He said it was amazing.
Good evening. I'm Dawn Neeson and welcome to GB News Tonight. We have just been covering Donald Trump live in the White House with President Zelensky, where the discussion is ending the war. Zelensky saying, I think we can end the war. Long-range missiles, we've been discussing the Tomahawk missiles, would be an escalation, says Trump. And the Hungary summit is not likely to see face-to-face meeting between Zelensky and Putin. That will be Putin and Trump. We have to get it done, Trump says, of a ceasefire deal. So it does sound very positive news coming there live from the White House. We will be covering that ongoing. But now we have some more breaking news for you. This one is concerning the royal family. This is Prince Andrew, after those reports earlier on about him handing back his titles. So I'm glad to say I have the expert on this. Cameron Walker, our royal correspondent, is here to give us the latest. Cameron.
Dawn, thank you. I have just received in the last few moments a statement from Prince Andrew, and he says the following. In discussion with the King and my immediate and wider family, we have concluded the continued accusations about me distracts from the work of His Majesty and the royal family. I have decided, as I always have, to put my duty to my family and my country first. I stand by my decision 5 years ago to stand back from public life. With His Majesty's agreement, we feel I must now go a step further. I will therefore no longer use my title or the honours which have been conferred upon me. As I have said previously, I vigorously deny the accusations against me. That statement there from Prince Andrew, no longer, of course, the Duke of York. That is the title he is referring to. Of course, lots of accusations against Prince Andrew have come to light in the last few weeks and months. Of course, 5 years ago, he stood back dramatically as a working member of the royal family. The late Queen stripped him of his honorary titles and patronages following the disastrous Newsnight interview. He was accused of having sex with a 17-year-old girl, Virginia Giuffre, an accusation he has always denied. But this morning, Dawn, even on the front of the Daily Mail, we have had accusations that he had met the Chinese official at the centre of the Beijing spy scandal. We've got Virginia Giuffre, who, of course, took her own life earlier this year. Her memoir is coming out next week, which is expected to have a lot of accusations against the Duke of York. But we also have some further details, as I understand it. So this change is taking place immediately. Prince Andrew is no longer the Duke of York. Of course, it was a choice between he either decides voluntarily to get rid of his title as Duke of York, or it's an act of Parliament and politicians who would have to force the removal. The last time that happened, Dawn, was 1917, the Titles Deprivation Act, which got rid of lots of German princes' titles because, of course, we were at war with them during the First World War. I understand that the decision was taken in recognition of the fact that the prince's personal issues, i.e. all the accusations against him, continues to be an unwelcome distraction from the work of the wider royal family. I understand that it was Prince Andrew's decision, taken in close consultation with the King. I understand also that King Charles is glad of this outcome. The Prince of Wales, the future king, of course, he was consulted along with other members of the royal family. When it comes to Royal Lodge, the mansion that Prince Andrew still lives in with his ex-wife Sarah Ferguson, he is going to remain there. He has a private tenancy with the Crown Estate, which clearly is unaffected by Prince Andrew's decision to relinquish his honours and titles. It's a 75-year lease. It's not going to end until 2078, so well after Prince Andrew's lifetime. So as much as the public or the royal family or whoever wants to evict Prince Andrew effectively from Royal Lodge, that's not going to happen because he has a private tenancy agreement with that, like anybody else does with the private tenancy agreement, as long as he can pay the rent and afford the upkeep. I also understand that Sarah Ferguson, in her professional capacity, is going to just be known as Sarah Ferguson. So the Duchess of York no longer going to be referring to herself as the Duchess of York. Of course, it's only a couple of weeks, isn't it, Dawn, since a number of charities have disassociated themselves with the Duchess following that email to the late paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, where she called him her supreme friend. I also understand that the Duke of York title, of course, is not going to be used, but he is going to remain a prince because...
That was my question. Is he going to be a prince still?
And he will, because he is the son of Queen Elizabeth II. And the title of prince, in accordance with the letters patent issued in 1917 by George V, which was updated by Queen Elizabeth II in 2012, states that the son of the monarch is going to be known as a prince. So he's not giving up the prince title, but he's given up the Duke of York title, Dawn.
And he hasn't been His Royal Highness for a while now. That title's been inactive for a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, so that he got rid of that in 2019, or I should say the late Queen got rid of that in 2019, following the disastrous Newsnight interview with Emily Maitlis, where he got himself into a lot of hot water surrounding the allegations regarding Virginia Giuffre, and he was stripped of his HRH status. He was stripped of his honorary military titles and royal patronages, so that's where he got rid of. There wasn't much more the king could do, really, in this situation. As I said, it's not up to him to strip Prince Andrew of his title. It's been reported this afternoon in the Times and the Telegraph and others that it was essentially a choice. It was either, because this scandal was running and running and running, it was really distracting from the working members of the royal family's public work. It was either going to have to be Prince Andrew decides voluntarily to give up the Duke of York title, which he now has done, or the politicians are going to have to get involved and strip him of that title.
And what does this mean? I mean, if you bumped into Prince Andrew now, because he is still Prince Andrew, how would you address him? I mean...
Well, Prince Andrew,
just
sir.
Prince Andrew, that's it.
Maybe.
Sir.
Prince Andrew,
okay,
or Andrew, yes.
And what does this mean for relations with the royal family? We're coming up to Christmas now. What does it mean for Christmas? I mean, we normally see them at Sandringham, we have recently. Charles has been slowly introducing his brother back into the royal fold.
Prince Andrew is not going to be at Sandringham this Christmas. Of course, he wasn't there last year due to a separate scandal. I think it was the Young Tembo Chinese spy scandal from memory.
Yeah.
He is not going to be in that lineup outside St Mary's Church in Sandringham, where the royal family typically process on the morning of Christmas Day together in harmony. Prince Andrew will not be seen in public in front of the cameras on Christmas Day. In terms of his daughters, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, are their titles going to be affected? Well, no. The princesses are going to be wholly unaffected because they are the granddaughters of the late Queen Elizabeth II, and they clearly have no wrongdoing or accusations of wrongdoing against them. The Councillor of State issue is another problem. So for those of you who aren't aware, the Councillors of State are essentially members of the royal family over the age of 21 in the direct line of succession who can act on behalf of the monarch on official state business if the monarch is abroad or is incapacitated for poor health, for example. You need 2 Councillors of State to act on the monarch's behalf. Prince Andrew is a Councillor of State because he is number 5, I think. You know, he's within that line of succession. But that role is inactive. So the 2 Councillors of State, when the king became king, but he essentially added to that, he gave the House of Lords, he basically said to the House of Lords, I say that my other 2 siblings, Princess Anne and Prince Edward, can act on my behalf as Councillors of State as and when necessary, which essentially means that Prince Andrew and indeed Prince Harry, although they are technically still Councillors of State, their roles are inactive. They're never going to be called upon to conduct state business.
So does this mean we will not see Prince Andrew in public life anymore at all?
I don't think we will. No, I think it was a very significant statement from Prince Andrew himself, clearly in close consultation with Buckingham Palace. I suspect the only images we're going to get of Prince Andrew, I keep wanting to say Duke of York, of course he's no longer the Duke of York, are paparazzi shots of him playing golf on the Windsor estate or him driving his car. I can't imagine there's going to be any official photographs of him. The last big public appearance we had of Prince Andrew, we'll see if we can get some pictures of that later, is for the Duchess of Kent's funeral last month outside Westminster Cathedral. And if you remember, Dawn, very awkward exchange between Prince William, heir to the throne, and Prince Andrew. Prince Andrew clearly trying to strike up a conversation with his nephew, Prince William, who was having none of it. He did not want to be seen in public, to be having a conversation with Prince Andrew. And I suspect all of these scandals, which continue to be piling on the Prince, has something to do with it. And it is clearly very telling. I think there has been behind the scenes a lot of pressure when it comes to Prince Andrew and what he should do from the King, his brother, other members of the royal family. I suspect Prince William actually had a lot to do with this as well, because you saw him in public.
Yes,
all of that
was very telling, wasn't it? Okay, thank you very much, Cameron. Stay with us. Let's get the take of Charlotte Griffiths now, who's editor-at-large of the Mail on Sunday. Charlotte, good to see you. Thank you very much for joining us. Charlotte, this is big breaking news. What do you make of it?
Well, I think they just reached a tipping point in the royal family. It was just completely untenable for him to keep his title. But, he had to give it up himself, essentially, to save further drama, further headlines, further scene stealing from other royals. So it was a rare moment, really, of self-awareness from the Duke of York to actually fall on his sword. But I know he's been under a lot of pressure. And you mentioned Prince William there. I think Prince William was very involved. Prince William is furious about the situation. And, he is the future of the monarchy going forward. And he wants to protect it. And I'm afraid Andrew was, of course, a huge liability.
Charlotte, how much do you think he jumped or was pushed?
I think he was pushed. I do think, I think it really took some seriously high-level in very intense meetings this week. I mean, I think they were going on quite late last night as well, to really put the pressure on. It takes a huge amount of pressure for Prince Andrew to do the honourable thing. He said in his Newsnight interview in 2019 that he was an honourable person. But last Christmas, after the Yang Teng Bo scandal, he was under a lot of pressure not to go to Sandringham for Christmas, not to try and see the royal family for Christmas. And actually they had to get Sarah Ferguson to finally have a word with him because he refused. And it's a bit like with Royal Lodge. He's refusing to move out of Royal Lodge. I also think he should do the honourable thing and give up that lease. I just think it's completely inappropriate for him to have a very, very large 30-room senior property very close to Prince William's new house. It doesn't befit his status. He's no longer the Duke of York, so he really needs to downsize.
Do you think that this is probably more William's doing? We know that the Queen was actually fond of Andrew and Charles was actually quite keen to honour his mother's wishes. So do you think a lot of this pressure has come from William, who, as we know, is very keen on modernising the royal family?
I do think a lot of the pressure came from William because the King, he does, in some ways, cherish his brother. I don't think they get on. I don't think they're similar personalities, but they did grow up together. They are blood. As you say, Charles has always wanted to respect his mother's wishes. And I think he just had a bit of a blind spot, much like his mother did for Andrew. Recently bringing him back into the fold in the last few years, as well as Sarah Ferguson. I know William thought that was an error, and he was leaning on his father. So I think actually it was William that had to be the voice of reason. It's a very painful position for the King to be in, especially while he's suffering from cancer.
Of course, yes, there is that. That's going to be make a very tough time even tougher. Charlotte, do you think this is the last we will see of Andrew and Sarah Ferguson now?
I do. I really do. I mean, you said earlier that she can no longer use the Duchess of York in her professional capacity. There is no professional capacity. All her charities have given her up. I mean, obviously the same's happened for Andrew. And I just, it's hard to be more invisible than they already are. But as we learned from the Duchess of Kent's funeral, if they are given a chink, if they are given an inch, they will take a mile. They'll walk to the front of every photo call, jostle their way to the front, speak to Prince William. It was highly embarrassing for the rest of the royal family how they behaved at the Duchess of Kent's funeral. So I think this is it now. This is the moment where he becomes truly invisible. I'd be amazed if we even saw him going around Windsor Castle on horseback anymore.
OK, Charlotte, thank you very much. That's Charlotte Griffiths, editor-at-large on the Mail on Sunday, on the breaking story that Prince Andrew has handed back all his royal titles. OK, now let's go to former royal editor for The Sun, Duncan Larkham. Duncan, a huge story for you for tomorrow's papers. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I think Charlotte's really summed it up very, very well indeed. I mean, this is a prince who is so arrogant and so full of his own self-importance that he thought that he could just carry on and be part of the royal family when he is absolutely disgraced. He denies all the allegations, of course, but it will not go away. His friendship with Jeffrey Epstein, the accusations that have been fired at him, all of these things add up. And frankly, I think it's just about time. Probably far too late, frankly. But he will no longer be a member of the royal family. And I think probably most people would say absolutely quite right. Thank goodness.
Do you think the writing was on the wall when we saw William blank his uncle at the funeral?
I think that's interesting. I mean, yes, William is no fool. William has got his destiny to fulfill. And I think he saw his uncle, Prince Andrew, as nothing more than a real pariah, frankly. And you know, the Queen had a soft spot for Prince Andrew. Charles is his brother, didn't want to unnecessarily perhaps punish his brother, but I think from Prince William's point of view, he read the room. And I think today's announcement, today's exclusively breaking story, shows just how influential William is inside King Charles's court.
Now, Andrew famously didn't think that the Emily Maitlis interview had gone badly. He thought he'd done very well in that interview. Do you think his arrogance will see him through this, or do you think he'll finally begin to accept that, you know, this is not, you know, where he's gone wrong in life?
Well, who knows? I mean, who knows what goes through Prince Andrew's head? He has basically been exposed in these emails that have come out in the recent days. He's been exposed as someone who was lying to Emily Maitlis about when he cut ties with Jeffrey Epstein. And you can only conclude from that he just simply doesn't get it. Whether this now means he's finally got it, or as you asked earlier, was he pushed or did he jump? The fact is, Prince Andrew is no more.
Exactly. And how do you think your readers are going to react to this news, Duncan?
Prince Andrew is an incredibly unpopular member of the royal family. He was popular once in his heyday after the Falklands War in 1982, where he served his country. Things were good then, things were rosy, but I just think now time has run out for him, and the writing is on the wall.
What do you think he's going to do now?
Good question. That's probably something he's asking himself, if I'm on it. You know, play a bit of golf, stay out of the way of photographs, not join the royals when, for example, they meet at Sandringham at Christmas. He will not be visible. But how do you make yourself invisible? That's probably quite difficult. So, yeah, I mean, it's a dire situation for the royal family, and it's the last thing that King Charles needs. Absolute last thing he needs when, you know, he's trying to fulfill his destiny as king, having waited since he was a 4-year-old child. And this has exploded since he became king, and you can't help but feel rather sorry for King Charles that this has happened on his watch.
Indeed. Thank you very much. That's Duncan Larkham from The Sun, the royal editor of The Sun. It'll be interesting to see all those front pages tomorrow. Still got Cameron Walker with me in the studio. Cameron, it is interesting. I mean, Charles has waited all his life to be king. He becomes king, and suddenly, obviously, he gets ill with cancer. Catherine, a daughter-in-law he adores, gets ill with cancer, and now he has to deal with this as well. It has been one thing after another.
Yes, a lot of grenades, I think, have been thrown King Charles's way, and of course he is in his mid-70s, and as you say, Dawn, he is, continuing his weekly cycle of cancer treatment. But I think, to be honest, the King had no choice, and neither did the royal family. It was becoming this scandal which seemed to have a new strand to it every single day, and it was overshadowing the real work of the royal family when it comes to their patronages and supporting communities up and down this country and indeed beyond. I think it's important to clarify, of course, that Prince Andrew has agreed to relinquish the use of his titles, i.e. the Duke of York, and as a Knight of the Garter, the Order of the Garter, he's of course part of the oldest and most noble order of chivalry in Britain, and he was bestowed that by Queen Elizabeth II, his mother. But they effectively remain extant. In other words, they're still in existence. Right. They still survive. So legally, he is still the Duke of York, but he's no longer using the Duke of York title. He's no longer being a Knight of the Garter. I suspect when it comes around to Garter Day next June, he will not attend the Garter throne room ceremony. He will not attend the Garter lunch. And he already, of course, since that infamous Newsnight interview, has not taken part in the procession with their fluffy plumed hats from Windsor Castle down to St George's Chapel. They're essentially just inactive, these titles, so it's tricky.
Why are they in abeyance, as the statement has said, rather than just being taken away, that's it, they're gone?
Well, it's exactly the same thing that happened with the HRH status. If you remember back after the Newsnight interview again, the bombshell interview, he agreed, or the Queen basically said to him, you can no longer use your HRH title, the HRH status. So legally it's still there, it's just kind of inactive, and it is the most that Andrew can do by himself. It's the most that the royal household can do by themselves. In order to totally legally get rid of the Duke of York title, it would need an Act of Parliament. Right. 62% of the British public, according to the latest YouGov poll, wants Prince Andrew to have his title removed. And to be fair to the royal household, they have gone as far as they want. It would, if they wanted to have another stage, to go another stage further, it would be up to the government, it would be up to a backbench MP to lodge a private member's bill in order to try and get that through Parliament. But as the Times was reporting earlier on today, Dawn, the Parliament have enough to deal with than trying to remove a prince's title who has disgraced himself over a number of decades. Yeah,
that is certainly true. They have got enough on their plates, haven't they? So what do we think now? How do you think the public are going to react to this? I mean, you said 62% of the public want to see the titles removed. It does beg the question what the rest of them think, or what do they want? Yeah,
well, I mean, Prince Andrew, it has been for some time the least popular member of the royal family. Harry and Meghan slightly above them, but Prince Andrew firmly in the bottom camp. And the thing is, it's not just one scandal, Dawn, we're talking about. OK, we've got the Virginia Giuffre, very sadly took her own life earlier this year, trafficked by the convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. She alleges she was forced to have sex with Prince Andrew on 3 separate occasions when she was under the age of 17, an allegation Prince Andrew has always denied, of course.
But there was that horrible phrase in the book that is being published now about, she said he felt it was his birthright to have sex with her.
Yeah, well, that's what Virginia Giuffre has said. Yes. We clearly have gone to Prince Andrew's office for comment on that particular allegation. He has not responded. Of course, in his statement this evening, he has said, I vigorously deny the accusations against me. Of course, that's what Virginia is going to clearly have written in her book. But it isn't just that. It's the Chinese spy scandal as well. Yang Tengbo, as Charlotte Griffiths was saying earlier, that was last year's Chinese spy scandal, cozying up to rich people in China who particularly are hostile to the British state. That is why he was forced, or Sarah Ferguson even persuaded him that he shouldn't be, as you can see on your screens now, for those of you watching on television from 2023, walking with the royal family on Christmas Day in front of the cameras and the public at Sandringham. Last year he wasn't there. This year Buckingham Palace confirms, I understand it, is also not going to be there. But then this morning, the front of the Mail, we've got him with a very senior official of the Chinese Communist Party who is said to be at the centre of this recent Chinese spy scandal, cozying up to him as well. It's just not a great look. He keeps making the wrong decision, which is why he's got himself in this position where he's having to relinquish all of his titles.
But do you think the arrogance that Andrew has always demonstrated, certainly with that Newsnight interview, which he thought had gone well, Do you think this will sink in, Cameron? Do you think he'll realise now that this is the end, there is no coming back from this?
I mean, it's hard to see what is in Prince Andrew's head. I mean, I have spoken to a number of people who have, you know, been in close contact and has spoken to Prince Andrew in person, and it's always the same story, that he is very notoriously can be sometimes quite difficult to deal with. Arrogance is a word that's thrown around. I'm sure Prince Andrew would clearly deny that. Sarah Ferguson, his ex-wife, definitely denies that. She calls him a very good man. It's really tricky to know what's going on in his head. I don't think he sees it. He was born in the 1960s. His mother had been on the throne for 10 years already. And he was always said to be Queen Elizabeth II's favourite son. Queen Elizabeth had Charles and Anne when she was still Princess Elizabeth in the 1940s and very early 1950s in Anne's case. She's 25 years old when she comes to the throne. She has to essentially abandon her first two children to a nanny. Not abandon, that's probably the wrong phrase, but, you know, a lot of time spent with the nanny. She has to clearly focus on her duties as head of state. She did take her duties very seriously. So 10 years later, when she got into routine of being queen, and she had Andrew and then had Edward, she was so happy, and she could be a mother to Andrew and Edward. And Andrew, I think, was, you know, he was born into a life of privilege. He was sent to Gordonston and flourished at Gordonston School in Scotland, which was his father, Prince Philip's choice. And he was always rumoured to be Queen Elizabeth II's favourite son. Clearly, the Queen never said that on the record. I'm not sure if she said that behind the scenes. But it just adds to the narrative that Prince Andrew could do no wrong in the Queen's eyes, and therefore he felt he could do no wrong in the eyes of anybody. And therefore, as Virginia Giuffre said in her book, he felt he was entitled and could get away with everything. And regardless of whether there was malice or not, I doubt there was, but he always, unfortunately, was on the bit of a back pedal. And then he became a Falklands War hero in the 1980s, and he was a Falklands War hero. He fought for this country, defending this nation or a realm of, or part of this nation in the Falkland Islands against the Argentinians, and did sterling brave work as a helicopter pilot, came back to this country a war hero. And what a fall from grace we have seen since. When he left the Royal Navy, he did not have a purpose. And he was given a role as trade envoy with the British government, travelling around the world, pushing up to all of these people. And for whatever reason, that had to end, possibly because of some of the scandals which were starting to brew under the surface. And then, of course, it all started to come out.
Yeah, it's been a downward spiral. Cameron, stay with us. Thank you very much for now. We'll go now to talk to former royal correspondent at The Sun, Charles Ray. Charles, good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Charles, huge breaking story for the newspapers tomorrow. You've followed Andrew and the royal family for many, many years. What do you make of this?
Oh, it's absolutely massive, massive, massive story. I mean, the King and I suspect Prince William as well have clearly said to Andrew, listen, you have got to give up these titles. I know they're in abeyance, but he's not allowed to use them, or else it will go before Parliament and they will take them away. And that's even, I mean, this is shameful enough, but it'll even be more shameful that they're forcing you to give it all up. Now, he's lost the Duke of York title. It'll stay in the background. He cannot use it. He's also lost the right to be a member of the Britain's oldest order of chivalry, the Order of the Garter. He hasn't attended the ceremony at Windsor for years now, since this controversy blew up. But he went to the lunch. He won't even get a free lunch anymore. He's also lost the two other titles, the Earl of Inverness, the Scottish title, and a Baron Killyleagh. So they're all gone as well. And Sarah Ferguson, his wife, can no longer use the title Duchess of York. And this is really huge, the way it's developed this week, and it's because of this book. She's, you know, Virginia Giuffre, I know Andrew keeps on denying it and he's vigorously denied the accusations, but she's still speaking from beyond the grave. And she is really putting the boot in that it has become totally impossible for Andrew to continue in any shape or form. And like Charlotte Griffiths earlier on, if you see Andrew at any event, I'm talking about family events or anything at all, you know, Windsor area or whatever, you'll be very, very lucky. He will become as rare as a blue squirrel.
He will be a complete pariah, but it is interesting that, you know, Virginia Giuffre, who was a victim at 17, took her own life, but she is really haunting him from beyond the grave, isn't she?
That is one of the worst aspects of this whole story. I mean, he can deny everything he wants, but one of the worst aspects of this whole saga is the fact that that poor girl, having been abused by Jeffrey Epstein and abused by a number of other men, has felt it necessary to take her own life and leave her children. I mean, it's just appalling.
Maybe it is justice from beyond the grave. Obviously, we have to make it clear that he does deny any of these allegations. But do you think he would... Same question we're asking everyone. I mean, how much of jumping and how much of pushing was involved in this?
I was pushed entirely. There's no question about that in my mind, because if they start the process of forcing him to give up the title, that's got to go through Parliament. And we all know how long things take to go through Parliament. Now, this he has been spoken to by the King, and who the King has spoken to. It's made it clear that he's spoken to other members of the royal family, including and especially Prince William, and they have made it quite clear to him, you have got to take this move yourself and in effect resign from it all, because it is having a serious effect on the workings of the royal family, other members of the royal family who have not done any wrong and who are trying to do good deeds and help other people in this country.
Charles, what effect do you think this will have on the royal family?
Well, I don't think it's something that they are over the moon with, but then again, they haven't been over the moon with anything that Andrew has done, certainly over the last few years, and in particular this situation with these terrible allegations that have been made against him. Again, I repeat, as you have, he denies all this. But, you know, it's hard to believe that you end up giving £12 million to a woman you claim you've never known. It just doesn't rack up. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So the royal family have needed to move. I'm of the opinion they should have moved a little bit quicker, but better late than never.
And how much, Charles, do you think that this is William's doing?
Oh, well, he certainly had a very big impact in it. I mean, we saw at the Duchess of Kent's funeral that he, in effect, snubbed him when he tried to speak to him. And that's his uncle. So he hasn't got any time for him whatsoever, and doesn't really want to be in the same room, doesn't want to breathe the same air as Andrew, in my view. So he's had quite a big impact in all this. Let's not forget, this is the future king. So any big decisions that happen in the royal family, William is consulted all the time, and this is a big one.
It really is. How do you think the public are going to take this? We're just talking to Cameron Walker, our royal correspondent here, saying that 62% of the public thought that Andrew should be stripped of his titles. Do you think this will be welcomed by the British public?
I think the vast majority will be welcomed. I mean, when I've appeared on your programme in the past and I've looked at some of the comments, when we're talking about Andrew, there isn't much support for Andrew anywhere. You look at any of the polls, I mean, he ranks below Harry and Meghan, right down at the bottom, and has done for some time. I don't know what the other 38% are thinking at the moment. We'll have to wait and see what happens in the next poll. But I can't believe that there is anybody left in this country who believes and supports Prince Andrew in any shape or form.
Charles, I have to say, talking on a personal level, the one time I did meet our own Prince Andrew, because he is still a prince, obviously, I did find him particularly patronising, I think is one of the polite ways of putting it. Do you have any personal recollections and give us a bit of an insight to what the man is actually like?
Well, I met him several times, and he always seemed to me to be quite an arrogant man in any case. I mean, you knew he was a royal prince and he was the Duke of York. He made that perfectly clear, and he expected, that reverence, to be carried out when he was around. I mean, I interviewed him many moons ago for when he was the main supporter of the Charity for Children, NSPCC. And we did a piece obviously to promote that, but he wasn't he was not a warm person. He wasn't someone who you could really get to like at all. I just found him a cold fish.
So good riddance.
Yes, absolutely. Good riddance, and stay out of the way, Andrew, because nobody wants to see you. Not even your own family want to see you.
Indeed. Charles Ray, thank you very much. That's a former royal correspondent at The Sun, Charles Ray there, saying it like he is, as Charles always does. And do remember to keep in touch, gbnews.com/your say, with your views on this breaking story, which is momentous for the royal family. Let's go back to Cameron Walker now. Cameron, just refresh us about the actual story. What is this breaking news?
Yeah, so just for those of you just joining us here on GB News, Prince Andrew has agreed to relinquish all of his titles, including the Duke of York title. So he has released a statement in the last, just over half an hour ago at 7 o'clock. It says, or Prince Andrew's statement says, in discussion with the King and my immediate and wider family, we have concluded the continued accusations about me distract from the work of His Majesty and the royal family. I have decided, as I always have, to put my duty to my family and country first. I stand by my decision 5 years ago to stand back from public life. With His Majesty's agreement, we feel I must now go a step further. I will therefore no longer use my title or the honours which have been conferred upon me. As I have said previously, I vigorously deny the accusations against me. Of course, the Duke of York title was given to him upon his marriage to Sarah Ferguson by the late Queen Elizabeth II, his mother, and clearly, there's been a lot of scandals associated with Prince Andrew over the last 5 years when he was forced to step back as a working member of the royal family. After that disastrous Newsnight interview with Emily Maitlis, the Queen stripped him of his honorary military titles and patronages, and this is one step further. So, although legally he still remains the Duke of York and he still remains a Knight of the Garter, he will no longer be using it. And that is really as far as the King and the royal family can legally go. But the roles essentially remain inactive. And I must just correct myself, Dawn, actually. I gave too much credit to Prince Andrew. It's actually 67% of the public who wants Prince Andrew to have his remaining royal titles removed. The figure that has risen from 62% 3 years ago. So 67% of the British public, according to the latest YouGov poll, wanted Prince Andrew to have his remaining royal titles removed. That has now, in effect, happened in close consultation with His Majesty the King. The Prince of Wales was also consulted on this decision, and I suspect, as a number of these commentators, including Charles Ray, has been saying, Prince Andrew was potentially pushed in this direction. Perhaps he is not quite aware of the public mood, and I think I'm getting the sense that this could be Buckingham Palace trying to get ahead of the story that's coming down the tracks, because on Tuesday next week, the 21st of October, Virginia Giuffre, her memoir, will be published. Virginia Giuffre was a victim of Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted paedophile, the late convicted paedophile's sex trafficking ring. She alleges that she was forced to have sex with Prince Andrew on 3 separate occasions when she was 17 years old. The first in a Belgravia house in London, the second time in Jeffrey Epstein's house in New York, and the third on his private island in the Caribbean. Prince Andrew has always denied those allegations, and tonight he has repeated those denials, saying, I vigorously deny the accusations against me. But clearly there's going to be some pretty uncomfortable details for Prince Andrew within that memoir that is published on Tuesday. We've already had, haven't we, Dawn, in The Sun and other newspapers, extracts from that article, from that memoir printed, saying that Prince Andrew felt entitled to have sex with me.
I think that's one of the of all the shocking things about this whole saga. That quote has stayed with me. I mean, this was a 17-year-old girl. His own daughters were not that much younger than Virginia Giuffre when he first had sex with her. He denies any wrongdoing. Of course, we have to keep saying that. But it was that phrase that keeps coming back to haunt me.
Yeah.
That entitlement, that sense of entitlement, which you suspect has dug this hole for him, that sense of royal entitlement.
Yeah, and in 2022, early 2022, he settled out of court with Virginia Giuffre in a civil case, which he clearly has always denied. He didn't admit any liability within that case. However, he did reportedly pay out £12 million to a woman he claims to have never met. Now, either he just wanted this case to go away. There's been some speculation that the reason he did that was because he was forced to pay out that money because they didn't want the whole thing to overshadow the late Queen's Platinum Jubilee, 70 years on the throne, which was coming up in the June. Or, you know, the other option is, of course, he wanted to not have to be forced to sit in a open court and deny these allegations in front of very tough barristers.
Yes, because he denies any allegations, but they are still rather keen to talk to him in America about some of these accusations, aren't they?
They are, and Prince Andrew said during the Newsnight interview of Emily Maitlis in 2019 that he would clearly take part in any legal proceedings if his lawyers see fit, including any questioning by the FBI. We've got all of course, these Jeffrey Epstein documents being kind of drip-fed, I would suggest, through the US Congress and the US, and Prince Andrew's name does keep cropping up, which may be half of the problem when it comes to why Buckingham Palace have decided to, well, they haven't said so. They say that Prince Andrew has agreed to relinquish his titles. Of course, I'm sure the King and Prince William in particular would have had quite a strong opinion on that particular point. But the scandals kept on coming, Dawn, and it was really starting to overshadow what the royal family were doing in terms of their public work, their public roles. And King Charles, he's 76 years old. He's, continuing his cancer treatment. But just to recap for those of you who have just joined us, this effect is taking place immediately. So Prince Andrew is no longer going to be known as the Duke of York. He is no longer going to be known as a Knight of the Garter. He will not be taking part in any of the proceedings when it comes to being a Knight of the Garter, i.e. the Garter Throne Room in Windsor Castle in June, for any of those proceedings or any of those ceremonies that take place. This, of course, was taken in close consultation with the Prince of Wales and members of the royal family. The King is glad of this outcome. I understand it. He is still going to be remaining in Royal Lodge, that big mansion he lives in the Windsor Castle estate, because it's a private lease with the Crown Estate. The King has no part on that, and that lease is running until the 2070s, so well after his lifetime. So
he still will be living on royal ground. A lot of people are asking, what about money? What does he do for money now? How does that work? Do we have any more information on that?
Oh, I wish, Dawn. So let me talk to you about Prince Andrew's finances. So, of course, when he stood back as a working member of the royal family, he was no longer given an allowance by the sovereign grant. That's the official money, our taxpayers' money that funds the monarchy, the staff, and all the rest of it. He has the one we definitely know he has is a small private military pension. So that's what he definitely does, as any member of the armed forces when they leave service will be given a military pension. So he does have that, but it's not much. It's 10, 12 grand a year or something. He did used to have an allowance by the King, funded by the Duchy of Lancaster. Previously, of course, it was Queen Elizabeth II who funded it via the Duchy of Lancaster. That's a private pot of money, essentially the portfolio of landed property owned by the sovereign for their own private use. The King cut that off because I think the King was essentially trying to force him out of Royal Lodge. He no longer is funded by taxpayers for his security. Again, that was funded privately by the King until a couple of years ago. The King cut that off as well. So the question is, Dawn, how is he funding his security, the upkeep of Royal Lodge, which is very expensive, the rent of Royal Lodge, which is also very expensive? And the question is, and the answer is even, we don't know for sure. He has been cushioning himself up to a lot of these business people with, you know, which have perhaps been slightly dodgy. That is why, perhaps, when it comes to the scandals related to the Chinese spy allegations, of course, Prince Andrew has always denied any wrongdoing, but there have been question marks over his associations with very rich business people, including, of course, Jeffrey Epstein, trying to fund his luxury lifestyle. But, of course, he's a private individual, entitled to get money however way he sees fit within the eyes of the law. So we don't know 100%. It's not black and white.
Very interesting to find out, Cameron. For now, thank you very much. Joining us now is royal historian Alexandra Larman. Alexander, good to see you. Thank you very much for joining us. A very historic moment for the royal family.
Hi, Dawn. Well, I mean, it's all happened very fast because obviously even, you know, an hour or two ago, people were speculating as to are the royal family going to detonate the nuclear option? Because clearly this has come directly from King Charles. This has been, as Andrew said in his statement, this has been something that he himself has said, right, this can't go on anymore. And the question that we have to ask is there something else major about to come out this weekend? Because the revelations in the Virginia Giuffre memoir that have already been briefed, there was nothing new there. So it isn't as if that has led to this. But the question is that there are so many things it could be, because the chances of there being something to do with Epstein, some new email, some new piece of incriminating evidence. And I think it's very important as well just to reflect on how seismic this is, because members of the royal family don't just drop everything. I mean, even Edward VIII, when he became Duke of Windsor, he stayed as Duke of Windsor, and the man was a Nazi sympathiser who collaborated with the enemy. So the fact that Prince Andrew is now going to be plain Prince Andrew, no Dukedom of York, no Order of the Garter, he will almost certainly never be seen with the royal family in public again. There'll be no walks.
Oh, Alexander?
Hello?
Right, OK. Sorry, Alexander, I thought we'd lost you there. Carry on.
No, this is absolutely seismic. I mean, things like this do not happen. And I think it's very interesting to ask now, what is the future for Andrew? Because he can't be a private citizen in any meaningful way. He's going to be somebody who is always tainted by the things he's done. And I think that he must be sitting there now feeling angry that this has been forced upon him. But on the other hand, you look at Charles, who I think has acted very decisively. And the question now is, are there going to be more stories this weekend? And I think there's a very good chance that there are, because you don't act with this degree of certainty unless you are fairly sure there's going to be something even more incriminating about to come out.
Do you think that the way the royal family have handled it so far will be viewed in a positive light by the members of the public?
Well, I think it's very interesting that the royal family have behaved in a way that politicians don't tend to, because over and over again you see incompetent politicians not being removed from office straight away and hanging on by their fingernails for hours, even days. Whereas in this case, it's the first stories were coming out a couple of hours ago that Andrew might be expected that he would have to do it voluntarily, and boom, it's just happened, and it's been quite clear that he has been told to step down. And if you look at the statement that he put out, reading between the lines, it's quite a graceless statement, because obviously he's saying that he's doing it so it doesn't, or there's all the attention on the royal family. And of course the thing is that this isn't going away. It isn't as if people are going to forget about it. And of course the question that you have to ask is, has the royal family itself as an entity been damaged by him? And the answer is, of course it has, because he will always be the second son of the Queen. You can't take that away from him, just as I'm sure there's a lot of people, probably including the King, who would like him just to become plain old Mr. Andrew Windsor and to go a very, very long way away. And actually, if you look at Prince Harry and the fact that he's gone to Montecito, well, can Andrew not go to the North Pole? I mean, that would be quite a good option for him at this stage, because he can't expect to have any kind of life in Britain anymore, because the level of unpopularity is absolutely unprecedented. And I think that there'll be some very hard questions asked, because obviously we don't know about his financial affairs, but he's certainly not a poor man. And it might be that somewhere like the Middle East, somewhere like the Far East is now a more comfortable place for him to be. But this is absolutely massive news. I think it's one of the most significant developments in a story that seems to have twists and turns at virtually every single avenue at the moment.
Alexander, thank you very much. That's royal historian Alexander Larman there. Thank you very much. Now we're going back to Cameron. Cameron, I believe you have some more breaking news for us.
Well, yes. Well, hardly surprising, actually, but the anti-monarchy group Republic has released a statement.
Right.
Funnily enough, they have called for an inquiry into the Jeffrey Epstein scandal, following and calling the decision to drop Prince Andrew's titles as too little too late. Graham Smith, the chief executive of Republic, has said Andrew remains accused of sexual offences and abuse of office. He should be stripped of all titles and his Navy rank and should face a criminal investigation. Not using silly medieval titles is not a punishment that fits the offences. And he goes on and on. Of course, as I say, Prince Andrew denies all the allegations made against him, but this clearly has been such a headache for the King, Prince William, and indeed the rest of the royal family. The how do you solve a problem like Prince Andrew problem that just keeps on brewing, and they've done really as much as they possibly can without getting Parliament involved.
As I say, there wasn't much more they could do. Now, you've worked very closely with the King and the Queen recently on tours. How important is Queen Camilla going to be to the King in this? I mean, as you say, he's having weekly cancer treatment still. He needs support in this. It's kind of been an easy decision for him. It is his brother after all.
Yeah, it can't have been an easy decision, and that is the huge issue if you are monarch, because you have to wear two heads, essentially. You've got one as a private member of the Windsor family, and you have another as head of state who wears the crown. And, you know, those two people are going to be in huge, you know, conundrum and conflicts with one another. And although it is his dear brother, King Charles has to do what's best for this country as head of state, and he has decided, as sovereign of this nation, that his brother needs to have, well, Prince Andrew, they say, has decided to remove his titles, I suspect with very, very heavy pushing from the King and the Prince of Wales, that he needs to remove these titles, because it's not only what the public wants. 67% of the British public wanted Prince Andrew's titles removed. It was becoming this huge distraction from the good work of the monarchy.
It's interesting, pretty much every commentator we've spoken to over the past hour, Cameron, has alluded to the fact there will be more coming out now. Whether it is Virginia Giuffre's book, which we know is being published next week, or there is maybe something more, maybe some more emails being released in America. Do you think maybe that they have been forewarned that there is more to come and acted before they were really left with no choice?
It's certainly a possibility. We don't know for sure. We know that a number of emails are consistently being drip-fed and released in the US Congress when it comes to the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. If you remember, I think it was about a week ago, really, that Prince Andrew, an email that he had written to Jeffrey Epstein saying, we'll play some more,
Yes,
which essentially suggested that he had lied to Emily Maitlis in that Newsnight interview. He said the reason he met Prince Andrew in the park, Central Park in New York City, was to say we can no longer talk to each other because you have been convicted as a sexual predator against minors, a paedophile, essentially. But then this email was written to Jeffrey Epstein after that photograph was taken. Prince Andrew, of course, has denied all of the allegations, but the insinuation is that he was not telling a mistruth in that interview. And
we had a similar situation with Sarah Ferguson, who also contacted Jeffrey Epstein saying, you know, ignore all the stuff I've said in the press over here. I'm still, you know, I'm still your friend, and I had to say that, da 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 da. How much do you think Sarah Ferguson's had to do with her former husband's downfall?
God, well, it's hard to say, because I remember this time last year, we were all praising Sarah Ferguson, or at least last Christmas in December, we were all praising Sarah Ferguson for managing to persuade her ex-husband, Prince Andrew, that he shouldn't go to Sandringham for Christmas. Following the fallouts from the Yang Tengbo Chinese spy scandal, a big prominent business person who was in China who was accused of spying on behalf of the Chinese state against Britain, who Prince Andrew was getting very cosy with, Sarah Ferguson managed to persuade her husband to stay away from the royal family at Christmas, so he didn't take part in that church walk to St Mary's Church in Sandringham in front of the cameras. They stayed behind at Royal Lodge in Windsor. But of course now, Sarah Ferguson has been embroiled in her own scandal when it comes to the Duke of York. And as you say, Dawn, an email that she had written to Jeffrey Epstein, calling him her supreme friend. This is when she was essentially asked about her friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. She said she abhors all paedophilia. Jeffrey Epstein, she says, then had a go at her for that. And then she wrote that grovelling apology to Jeffrey Epstein.
It's a historic day indeed. Thank you very much, Cameron Walker, sternly covered it there. That's it for GB News. Tonight, on a historic night of news, Prince Andrew has given up his royal titles. But don't go anywhere. Stay with GB News throughout the night for our continued coverage with Matt Goodwin. And we also will be covering Trump and America and all the news from there. Here's Matt for you.
Well, good evening. On Friday night with Matt Goodwin, we're going to be getting the latest from the royal family fallout and Prince Andrew. We're also going to be going stateside to get the latest from President Trump, and we're going to be looking at that bombshell story in Birmingham and what on earth is coming next. I'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Evening. The weekend promises a big change. Still, most of us dry and cloudy tomorrow, but it should be a bit brighter than today. And then things really change through Saturday night and into Sunday as we see things turning wet and windy because of this area of low pressure moving in, finally replacing our area of high pressure. But that high is still with us at the moment. There is still a little bit of light rain here and there. Been a few showers through the day across the south coast of England and in northeast Scotland. Much of northern Scotland, though, hanging on to clear skies, which will allow it to turn quite chilly and also perhaps a little foggy. Further south, temperatures holding up with the cloud at 8 to 10 degrees Celsius, but a chance of a pocket or two of frost in northern Scotland where we've got those clearer skies. The thickest cloud out west still producing a little bit of light rain and drizzle in the morning for maybe Northern Ireland. Still perhaps across the Northern Isles the odd light shower too, but much of northern Scotland starts the weekend chilly, perhaps foggy as well, but should see some good spells of sunshine here. Elsewhere, like it has been for much of the week, sunshine in short supply, a lot of cloud sitting around, but generally that cloud a bit higher than today, so it won't be quite so gloomy, and a better chance of seeing some more breaks in the cloud across southwest England, maybe East Anglia in the southeast, North Wales, northwest England, so chance of seeing some sunny spells here and there, but I think the lion's share of the sunshine will be across northern Scotland. Elsewhere, again, the odd light shower, but most places just staying dry and fairly drab. A little bit warmer than today, 14, 15, maybe 16 degrees, perhaps 17 if we see some sunshine. But look at this, all changed. The rain moves in from the west during Saturday night and then lingers for much of Sunday. The rain could be pretty heavy over eastern parts of Northern Ireland. Met Office yellow warning in place here. Heavy bursts likely elsewhere too, but slowly moving through. So parts of the west do turn a bit brighter come Sunday afternoon. But for many, Sunday is a soggy affair and increasingly windy to boot.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
There's 2 weeks remaining in our latest, greatest giveaway. You could be in the driving seat of this Benamar Primera motorhome. This luxurious home from home comes with all the mod cons. Plus, you can use it with your current driving licence. We'll also boost your bank account with a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. It only takes one entry to become a winner. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment